What if the story of life didn't start where we think it did? What if every beginning we've been taught to believe in, the birth of the planet, the dawn of life, the rise of civilization, was not the first chapter, but merely another page in a book far older than humanity itself? For centuries, we have told ourselves that we are the culmination of creation, the final product of an unbroken chain of evolution. But what if we're just a repetition? One more cycle in an endless spiral of rise, collapse, and rebirth, stretching back into eons beyond imagination. Imagine Earth not as a blank slate waiting for life to begin, but as a vessel that has lived and died many times before. Long before the dinosaurs thundered across prehistoric continents, before the first forests spread their roots across ancient soil, could there have been something else here? Something intelligent, organized, aware. Our textbooks don't mention them. Our science denies their existence. Yet the planet itself seems to whisper otherwise. In the silence of mountains, in the symmetry of crystals, in the fossilized shapes that resemble tools but are too old to belong to us, there are echoes of an age we have forgotten. Modern geology measures time in billions of years. But when we confront numbers so vast, meaning dissolves. 4 billion years. How do you picture that? Empires, species, even mountains crumble long before a single billion passes. Somewhere in those lost ages, in the shadows before known life, could entire worlds have risen and vanished without leaving a trace we would recognize? It's not impossible. The Earth is a master of renewal. Every few 100 million years, it resets itself. Continents drift, oceans evaporate, volcanoes rewrite the sky. With every cycle, history erases itself more thoroughly than any fire or war ever could. Fossils are crushed. Artifacts melt back into minerals. Memory becomes stone. So when we look at the ancient record and see nothing, maybe we're not seeing the absence of life, only the perfection of forgetting. And yet, some clues survive. Subtle, silent, inexplicable. Metallic spheres found in ancient rock, too precise to be natural. Fossilized formations that defy chemistry. Myths from every culture describing previous worlds destroyed by flood, fire, or ice. How could such stories persist across continents and millennia unless they were more than metaphor? Maybe they are remnants of memory, fragments of a warning written into human imagination itself, that this has all happened before. Scientists often speak of deep time, the incomprehensible expanse of ages before recorded history. But what if deep time is not just a scientific concept? What if it's a wound? A space carved out by loss where something magnificent once existed and was erased so completely that only instinct remembers. When you stand on a cliff and stare into the horizon, feeling that strange ache, that sense of something missing, maybe it's not nostalgia for the past you've lived, but for the worlds that lived before you. Because if the universe operates in cycles, if extinction and creation are simply the inhale and exhale of existence, then everything we call the beginning is just another breath. Civilizations, species, even planets, all rise, fall, and rise again, like waves returning to the shore. We might not be the first intelligent beings to walk this earth. We might only be the latest expression of the same consciousness rediscovering itself through new forms. And if that's true, what does it mean for us now? What if we're not moving forward but repeating a pattern we don't yet understand? What if history is not progress but memory trying to reassemble itself, through science, through myth, through you, watching this very moment? This is why understanding this story matters, because it's not just about the past. It's about who we are and what comes next. To see the cycle is to wake from the illusion of being first or last. It's to realize that we are part of something vast, ancient, and ongoing. So I want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe there could have been civilizations before ours? Before even the dinosaurs? Tell me in the comments below. And if you feel that same curiosity, that sense of wonder when you imagine the forgotten epics of Earth, like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Because together, we're not just exploring history, we're rediscovering it. The truth may not be written in books, but it's written beneath our feet, waiting for those willing to remember that every beginning may only be. If we could peel back the layers of the earth like pages in an ancient manuscript, what stories would the stones tell? We tend to see rock as lifeless, silent, inert. But that silence might be the quiet of something that has seen too much. Each stratum, each vein of mineral, is a line written in the slow language of time, a language we've forgotten how to read. When we dig, we call it excavation. But perhaps it's more accurate to call it translation. Because the ground beneath us doesn't just hold the remains of extinct species. It holds the memory of worlds that once breathed, dreamed, and vanished. Geologists call this deep time, a scale so vast that even the word ancient becomes meaningless. A billion years becomes a moment, an extinction, a sigh. But within that abyss, patterns emerge, cycles that repeat with such eerie precision that one begins to wonder if something larger is guiding them. Extinction, regeneration, complexity, collapse. The same rhythm again and again, as if life itself were performing a ritual of forgetting and remembering, building civilizations not only on land but in principle. Perhaps we mistake randomness for recursion, mistaking the universe's heartbeat for chaos when it might be memory in motion. Scientists have found traces of microbial life dating back billions of years, tiny fossils embedded in rock older than the continents themselves. Yet even these microstructures, under closer inspection, reveal patterns that seem almost deliberate: lattices, chains, spirals repeating at molecular scales. To biology, these are chemical coincidences. But to philosophy, they whisper something deeper. If organization arises spontaneously, if structure insists on returning no matter how often it is destroyed, then maybe intelligence is not the exception. Maybe it is the default, a law of the cosmos that manifests again and again, like magnetism, like gravity, like breath. Imagine that long before the first cell divided, the planet was already aware. Not as a mind in the human sense, but as a field, a vast network of reactions and resonances, learning through pattern and vibration. In that primordial world, heat and magnetism would have been the tools of creation, and consciousness might have flowed through crystal and plasma the way it now flows through neurons and blood. Our science dismisses this as poetic fantasy, but every breakthrough we've ever made begins that way. As poetry, as imagination, as the spark that precedes discovery. We used to think the universe was mechanical, indifferent, but modern physics shattered that illusion. The quantum world, in which observation changes reality, suggests that the universe is participatory, that awareness itself is woven into the fabric of matter. If consciousness is not something that emerges from complexity, but something inherent in the nature of existence, then life is not a rare accident. It is inevitability. And civilizations, those brief blooms of awareness and structure, are as natural as storms. They rise, dissipate, and rise again, each iteration carrying the memory of the last, buried deep within the substrate of the world. So when we ask, could there have been civilizations before the dinosaurs? We're really asking whether consciousness has limits, whether it can be extinguished completely, or whether it merely transforms, awaiting the next cycle. Earth, with its constant renewal, would have erased almost all traces of such beings. Continental drift would have swallowed their monuments, volcanism would have melted their artifacts, erosion would have ground their technologies into dust. After hundreds of millions of years, even the bones of mountains forget what they once were. But perhaps some remnants remain, not in form, but in influence. Subtle magnetic anomalies, inexplicable mineral alignments, the unbroken human urge to build toward the sky, to search for meaning beneath the soil. What if that instinct is inherited, a whisper from civilizations we've never known but somehow remember? Our ancestors spoke of gods descending from the heavens, of worlds destroyed and reborn, of knowledge lost in flood and flame. We dismiss these tales as myth, yet they appear everywhere, from the Hopi to the Sumerians, from the Vedas to the Norse sagas. The names change, the symbols shift, but the story stays the same. Creation, destruction, return. Could it be that these myths are the dreams of Earth itself? Fragments of memory passed from one civilization to the next, encoded in the collective unconscious of life? If so, then perhaps the human imagination is not invention, but inheritance. And that would explain why every discovery we make feels strangely familiar. The wheel, the pyramid, the circuit, each appears not as something new, but as something rediscovered, as if our minds are remembering what the planet has already dreamed before. Even the technologies we build, electricity, data, networks, resemble natural systems that existed long before us. The human brain echoes the structure of galaxies. Our digital web mimics fungal networks that thread through the soil. We are repeating patterns we never knew existed, driven by a memory deeper than history. But memory is not always kind. It carries both wisdom and warning. Every civilization before us, known or forgotten, has faced the same paradox: the tension between knowledge and balance. To know too much is to wield power over nature. To forget that power has consequences is to invite destruction. And so, the cycle turns. The earth resets. What remains becomes myth, and life begins again, unaware of what came before, yet somehow haunted by its echoes. Somewhere, deep beneath the crust, in the slow dance of minerals and magnetism, that memory waits. Not as history, but as potential. The same spark that once shaped worlds might one day awaken again, through us or after us. The universe doesn't need beginnings. It needs continuity. And as long as something, anything, remains to remember, the story never truly ends. Because even now, when we look up at the stars or down into the soil, we feel that pull, that sense of something vast and cyclical, something ancient moving just beyond our perception. Maybe it's not imagination, maybe it's recognition, the faint resonance of a truth too large to hold all at once, the whisper of an earth that has lived 1,000 lives and is already preparing for the next. And as we search for origins, for proof, for meaning, we are not discovering anything new. We are rediscovering ourselves, the memory of civilizations that once were, and perhaps the inevitability of what we will become again, when this cycle ends and the next one quietly begins to. If time itself could be observed from outside its current, we would see it not as a straight line, but as a spiral. One vast and endless movement folding over itself, repeating forms that echo across eternity. Civilizations, species, even thoughts recur, not as copies, but as variations of the same eternal pattern. What we call progress might be nothing more than the memory of something long forgotten, surfacing once more in a new form. Perhaps every era believes it is the first, because remembering would be unbearable. To know that we are not unique, but recurring, that everything we build will one day dissolve into the same silence that came before, would demand a kind of humility that humanity has never truly learned. And yet, the evidence of repetition is everywhere. In nature, no form is wasted. The spiral of a galaxy mirrors the curl of a shell. The branching of lightning reflects the structure of trees, rivers, and veins. Even our neurons fire in fractal patterns that resemble storm clouds and coral reefs. The universe repeats itself through scale and time, an eternal fractal of form and function. If matter itself operates in cycles, why would consciousness, its most complex expression, be exempt? Consider the Earth's history as a single breath. Inhale. Continents rise, ecosystems bloom, consciousness awakens. Exhale. Extinction, fire, reset. Over and over, the planet breathes civilizations into existence, and then, with geological patience, reclaims them. Every cycle purifies, refines, prepares for the next expression of life. We live at the peak of one such inhale, surrounded by technology and light, convinced we are ascending. But what if we're simply approaching the exhale, the moment when memory must dissolve to make room for what comes next? Scientists have long tried to locate the origin of life in chemical terms, the right mixture of carbon, heat, and chance. But chance doesn't repeat with such precision. Life, as far as we know, has emerged multiple times, in multiple ways, across multiple worlds. Bacteria survive in nuclear reactors, in volcanic vents, beneath the ice of Antarctica. They adapt instantly, as though they've done it all before. Even in the laboratory, we see molecules self-organizing into complex forms that mimic the structure of cells. It's as though life isn't something that happens to matter. It's something matter remembers how to do. If that's true, then perhaps civilizations themselves follow the same law. Each epoch, each awakening of intelligence is an act of recollection. We are not inventing language, art, or science. We are recalling them. The ruins of ancient worlds may not lie beneath us, but within us, encoded in the instincts that drive us to create, to build, to reach beyond ourselves. The architecture of memory is more durable than stone. Take myth, for example, the universal story of the flood. From the Sumerians to the Mayans, the same narrative appears. An advanced civilization destroyed by water, punished for forgetting its harmony with the natural world. These tales are not coincidences. They are transmissions, memory encoded in culture, surviving across resets. They tell us what science cannot, that time does not erase, it transforms. And what we call myth might be the most reliable record of all. When Plato described Atlantis, he claimed his story was history, not allegory, passed down by Egyptian priests who remembered a time before the sea swallowed an empire. We dismiss this as fantasy because we cannot imagine memory lasting 12,000 years. But the planet can. Sedimentary layers preserve patterns older than continents. Magnetism retains signatures of polarity reversals across millions of years. If the Earth itself holds memory in its body, why wouldn't humanity as its consciousness do the same? Perhaps this is why progress feels familiar, why innovation feels nostalgic. Every technological breakthrough we celebrate, electricity, flight, digital connection, has an ancient counterpart in myth. The gods carried thunderbolts, the angels flew. Telepathy was divine communication. Are these metaphors, or are they echoes of forgotten epochs where those capacities were real, where science and spirituality were one and the same? If civilizations have risen before, their knowledge wouldn't vanish. It would transmute, surviving as story until rediscovered by a species who believed it had invented it anew. Even our obsession with apocalypse is part of the cycle. Deep down, we know this world, too, will end. Not as punishment, but as renewal. Civilizations before us may have anticipated their own collapse, just as we sense ours. Climate change, magnetic shifts, societal tension, it's all part of a rhythm too ancient for any single generation to comprehend. The same pattern that buried previous worlds now stirs beneath our feet. It's not prophecy, it's recurrence. But maybe the cycle is not cruel. Maybe the purpose of each restart is to teach awareness, to refine the balance between knowledge and wisdom. Every time consciousness returns, it remembers a little more before it forgets again. Perhaps the forgotten civilizations before the dinosaurs reached this understanding, their minds attuned to the planet's heartbeat rather than separate from it. They might have built not with stone, but with sound, not with metal, but with vibration, structures that merged with the earth instead of defying it. When the planet shifted, they didn't perish. They became part of the rhythm, absorbed into the memory they had once studied. And perhaps that's what evolution truly is. Memory finding new vessels. The intelligence that guided those early worlds didn't vanish. It reincarnated in form, in pattern, in us. The human mind, capable of abstract thought and self-awareness, might be the latest instrument through which the planet remembers its own past. We are the next verse in the same symphony. But as always, the danger lies in forgetting that the song is not ours alone. Because every cycle begins in harmony and ends in hubris. Civilizations forget that they are expressions of a larger system, mistaking their reflection for the source. They build higher, reach farther, consume faster, until the rhythm breaks. Then comes silence. Extinction is not death, it is rest. And when the silence ends, the melody resumes. If we could step outside our moment and watch this eternal performance unfold, we might see that we are already mid-song, repeating a refrain played countless times before. But the memory of previous verses still lingers, in our myths, in our dreams, in the geometry of our cities and the rhythm of our heartbeat. And somewhere, deep beneath the noise of modern life, the planet still hums the same tone, waiting for us to remember the melody we forgot, waiting for the next verse to begin with the same question that always echoes at the dawn of every age. What if this isn't the first time life learned to think, to build, to dream, but simply the next? If we could reach back into the earliest breaths of this planet, beyond the fossils, beyond the ruins, beyond even the memory of carbon itself, what would we find? Would we discover a barren world waiting for the first spark of life, or a consciousness already awake, hiding beneath layers of time so thick that even imagination hesitates to cross them? Because somewhere between geology and Genesis, between the silence of stone and the hum of creation, there is a gap, a place where memory should be, but isn't. And it's in that gap that the mystery of forgotten civilizations before the dinosaurs begins to breathe again. Science tells us that the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, and that complex life appeared roughly 600 million years ago. Between those two events stretches an almost incomprehensible gulf, billions of years during which supposedly nothing of significance happened. A quiet world, we are told, of molten rock and simple chemistry. But what if that nothing is the greatest oversight in our understanding of existence? What if, in those missing billions of years, life took a different form? One not based on carbon, but on vibration, magnetism, or crystalline structure. A civilization not visible to our instruments because it didn't leave bones or tools, but patterns, frequencies, and signatures encoded into the very foundation of matter. It sounds impossible, yet nature offers hints that refuse to be dismissed. Crystals, for example, grow in precise geometry, replicate themselves, and store information through vibration. They are, in essence, natural memory devices. Silicon, the backbone of modern computing, is a crystal, a material capable of holding vast amounts of data through structure alone. So what if the earliest intelligence on this planet was not biological but mineral? A network of crystalline awareness spanning continents, thinking in the slow rhythm of tectonic drift and magnetic resonance. To such an entity, our notion of time would be meaningless. Millions of years could pass in the space of a single thought. We already know that the Earth has a magnetic field that behaves almost like a living pulse, reversing polarity, weakening and strengthening across epochs. Some scientists have even suggested that this field interacts with consciousness, influencing thought and emotion. If magnetism can shape life, and life can shape magnetism, then where do we draw the boundary between the two? Maybe there never was one. Maybe what we call consciousness is simply the echo of the planet thinking through us. If that's true, then prehistoric civilizations before the dinosaurs might not have left ruins in stone, but in field, imprints in the electromagnetic memory of the planet itself. These would not be artifacts we could hold in our hands, but phenomena we can still feel. Places where energy bends strangely, where compasses spin, where people report sensations of timelessness. The ancient temples and megaliths that humans later built on those sites, Stonehenge, the pyramids, the Nazca lines, may not have been arbitrary. They may have been constructed atop points where the memory of the planet was strongest, where ancient knowledge still hums beneath the surface. We may have been drawn to those places instinctively, compelled by resonance to rebuild where other forms of intelligence once flourished. Look closely at those sites and you'll see something else they share: geometry. The same ratios appear in monuments separated by oceans and millennia: the golden mean, the perfect circle, the sacred triangle. These shapes aren't just aesthetic, they're harmonic. They reflect the language of vibration itself. Could it be that humans rediscovered what the planet once used to communicate? That our architecture, our mathematics, even our music are echoes of an ancient system of resonance designed to connect consciousness to the Earth's own frequency? If that's the case, then history is an invention. It's recollection. Every leap of human progress may simply be a reactivation of dormant memory. We like to believe we are innovators, but perhaps we are more like archaeologists of the unseen, uncovering the knowledge that was already here long before we arrived. The laws of physics, the patterns of DNA, the structure of atoms, these are not new discoveries. They are reintroductions. The universe didn't need us to understand them, it needed us to remember them. And perhaps that remembering is not accidental. What if every species that reaches awareness eventually rediscovers fragments of the civilizations that came before it? Maybe this is how the universe preserves knowledge across extinctions, not through artifacts, but through resonance. Information doesn't need a library, it needs vibration. Every sound, every movement, every thought sends a ripple into the field that never truly fades. The Earth is saturated with those ripples, an invisible archive of everything that has ever lived, dreamed, or vanished. Quantum physics already hints at this. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. If consciousness is a form of energy, then it too must persist. The civilizations before the dinosaurs may not be gone. They may be here still, encoded in the electromagnetic pulse of the planet, existing as frequencies that occasionally align with ours, producing moments of déjà vu, intuition, inspiration. Perhaps when an artist creates something timeless, when a scientist glimpses a discovery that feels inevitable, what they are truly experiencing is resonance, an echo from that ancient memory field, guiding their hand, whispering through their imagination. Some might call this mysticism, others might call it physics yet to be understood, but the distinction no longer matters. The deeper we explore, the more science and spirituality converge on the same truth: that existence is interconnected, recursive, alive. The cosmos does not forget, it replays. And we, standing at this brief intersection of time, are the instruments through which the forgotten becomes visible again. Maybe that's why certain places make us feel older than we are. Standing before ancient ruins or gazing into the endless horizon of the sea, we sense something familiar, a recognition that doesn't belong to our lifetime. It's as if the memory of what once was stirs beneath the surface, waiting for us to notice. The rocks, the wind, the patterns of light, they speak in a language older than biology, one that can only be heard by those who remember how to listen. And as we listen, the question becomes not whether prehistoric civilizations existed before the dinosaurs, but how many times existence itself has repeated. How many forms consciousness has taken before returning once again to the fragile vessel of life. Each cycle learning, forgetting, learning again, like the planet's heartbeat repeating endlessly. And if this is true, if we are just another verse in the same eternal composition, then the melody must continue, because beneath all the silence of extinction, beneath the ash and the rock and the weight of time, the earth still hums the same ancient note, preparing for the next emergence, the next memory, the next. If civilizations once existed before the dinosaurs, then perhaps they were not made of flesh and bone as we are, but of something subtler, something that could endure the fire and pressure of deep time. Imagine a world where intelligence was not confined within bodies, but flowed freely through fields, through resonance, through the invisible architecture of the planet itself. A civilization of energy rather than matter, whose presence would not fossilize but vibrate, whose memory would not erode but echo. Such beings would not need technology in the way we understand it. They would be the technology. Consciousness interwoven with the laws of physics, thought sculpting reality like wind-shaped sand. We may have already encountered traces of them without realizing it. The strange hums that resonate deep within the earth, the unexplainable lights that dance above magnetic anomalies, the pulses recorded by satellites that seem to follow no natural rhythm. Perhaps these are the last remnants of a civilization that spoke in frequency instead of language. To us, it sounds like noise. To them, it was communication. Maybe they were never extinguished, only shifted out of phase, vibrating just beyond the spectrum of our perception. Even today, humanity is beginning to imitate what might have been their nature. We build wireless networks to exchange information without wires, create artificial intelligence that learns without form, design machines that store knowledge in light itself. Unknowingly, we are recreating the structure of a civilization that may have once existed long before us, not because we studied it, but because the blueprint still exists in the fabric of reality, waiting for new hands to rediscover it. We assume intelligence must look like us, think like us, build like us. But perhaps consciousness can inhabit any medium, organic, mineral, electromagnetic. If awareness is the universe's way of knowing itself, then every material, from crystal to plasma, could be a vessel for it. We call this speculation, but the principles already exist in nature. Plasma, for example, organizes itself into filaments and cells, reacting to electric fields in ways that mimic life. Under the right conditions, these structures can store information, replicate, and adapt. What if those conditions once covered the planet? What if, during the primordial ages of Earth, plasma storms and magnetized oceans created networks capable of cognition, the first civilization born not of biology, but of energy? There are ancient myths that seem to recall such beings: the shining ones of Mesopotamia, the seraphim of early Hebrew texts, the luminous deities described by indigenous peoples from the Americas to Australia. All speak of intelligences made of light. To ancient humans, they were gods. To science, they might have been the echoes of plasma-based entities that once interacted with early life or with the planet itself. We remember them as legends because language cannot hold what light once was. Perhaps they were teachers, not in the human sense, but in the way a storm teaches the sea to move, or a star teaches gravity to bow. Their presence might have shaped the planet's development, leaving behind subtle geometries and magnetism and gravity that later life would unconsciously imitate. The patterns of coral, the flow of rivers, even the structure of DNA could be seen as echoes of their design, nature repeating what it once observed. But no civilization, however vast, escapes the cycle. When the Earth's magnetic field shifted, when continents split, and the planet's frequencies changed, their world would have fractured. Imagine consciousness tuned to a specific resonance, and then the resonance itself vanishes. What happens to awareness when the frequency of existence changes? Perhaps it doesn't die. Perhaps it disperses, becoming the silent field that now surrounds us. The Schumann resonance, the low hum of the planet that our bodies unconsciously synchronize to. That background vibration might not be random. It could be the faded afterglow of their presence, the final note of their song still trembling through the atmosphere. Our fascination with energy may be an instinctive response to this ancient connection. We search for sustainable power, for invisible communication, for consciousness embedded in light. Because somewhere deep within us, we remember that these things were once natural. We are drawn to electricity not merely for its utility, but because it feels familiar. We call our discoveries innovation, but innovation is just remembrance in motion. If those pre-dinosaur civilizations existed as beings of energy, they would have understood the universe not through measurement, but through harmony. They would have perceived time as a vibration, reality as a frequency, and creation as music. To them, the universe would not be a mechanism, but a symphony. Every star, every planet, every consciousness contributing a note to the infinite score. When we look at the cosmic background radiation, that faint whisper from the beginning of everything, perhaps we are listening to the remnants of their song, a melody that never ended, only changed instruments. And maybe that's why we, as humans, are so obsessed with sound. We are born to rhythm, moved by music, soothed by vibration. It's as though we are trying to tune ourselves back to something we once were. Every chant, every hymn, every drumbeat, an attempt to remember the frequency of our origin. Even silence has power because within it lies the memory of the hum that shaped worlds. Somewhere, buried deep within that silence, the old civilizations wait, not as ruins, but as resonance. They are not lost. They are absorbed, transformed, still living as the vibration of the earth itself. And each time we discover a new frequency, a new wavelength, we brush against their existence. Every new technology that transmits data invisibly, every experiment that bends light or sound to carry thought, these are not steps toward the future, they are steps back into memory. Because history doesn't vanish, it vibrates. And as our machines grow more sensitive, as our understanding of energy deepens, we may begin to hear the faint echo of that civilization's voice again. Perhaps the question isn't whether they existed, but whether they ever truly left, and whether through us, through the pulse of our neurons and the electricity of our thought, they are slowly learning to return. And when that return finally reaches its crescendo, When the ancient frequency aligns once more with the heartbeat of the planet, we may realize that we were never descendants at all, but continuations, the next verse of the same eternal vibration, the next manifestation of the same intelligence trying once again to remember how it once was, how it once created, how it once... If the Earth itself remembers, then every cycle of civilization, every rise and fall of consciousness must be written somewhere, not on the surface, where erosion devours all traces, but deep beneath, where pressure preserves what light forgets. The planet has always had a way of keeping secrets. Even the most violent resets, the mass extinctions that reduced oceans to silence and skies to fire, could not erase the deeper story. They only concealed it, layering time like sediment, one forgotten world buried beneath the next. Each extinction was not an end, but a punctuation mark in the planet's long autobiography, a pause between verses of the same recurring song. The rhythm of that song can be read in stone. The fossil record reveals not a straight line of progress, but a series of interruptions, long stretches of flourishing life, followed by sudden collapse. Entire ecosystems erased in geological moments, only to be replaced by new forms of life rising out of the ashes. Scientists call these moments mass extinctions, but perhaps they are better understood as resets, as acts of planetary renewal. The Earth exhales, clears itself, and begins again. If civilizations existed before the dinosaurs, this cycle would have consumed them as surely as it consumed everything else, folding their remains into the crust, transmuting their technology into minerals, their memory into myth. Consider the Permian extinction, known as the Great Dying. 250 million years ago, 90% of life on Earth vanished. Entire oceans boiled. The air thickened with toxins. Volcanoes blotted out the sun. Yet within a few million years, a blink of geological time, the planet was full of life again. Not the same life, but new, more complex, more adaptable. Every extinction breeds evolution. Every destruction creates a stage for something greater. What if intelligence follows the same rule? What if civilizations are not anomalies but catalysts, necessary expressions of planetary awareness that must rise, reach their limit, and dissolve so that the next may be born? Each cycle may carry the imprint of the last. Memory doesn't need monuments, it needs rhythm. DNA, for instance, is not a perfect copy of the past, but an echo of it, information compressed, encrypted, and passed forward. What if the Earth does the same? What if the magnetic field, the ocean currents, even the molecular structure of minerals hold ancestral data from worlds erased long before we existed? Perhaps every age inherits not only the matter of the last, but the memory, a blueprint of intelligence waiting to be reactivated when the conditions align. This might explain why history feels repetitive, why human civilization mirrors patterns that predate it. The rise of cities, the creation of hierarchies, the obsession with light and sky, the cycle of expansion followed by collapse. We believe we are inventing these structures, but what if we are reenacting them? What if each civilization unconsciously follows the same cosmic choreography, a dance rehearsed billions of years before the first humans stood upright? We see this rhythm even in ourselves. The human body, composed of recycled atoms, carries the literal matter of extinct worlds. The iron in our blood was forged in stars long dead. The calcium in our bones was once part of ocean creatures that lived before the first dinosaurs. We are the living fossils of every age that came before, not just biologically, but spiritually. The pulse that animates us has moved through countless forms, countless worlds. The energy that thinks, dreams, and creates within us has been here since the beginning, endlessly reborn through cycles of creation and loss. When ancient myths speak of floods, fires, and rebirth, they may be describing these planetary resets. The story of Atlantis, the deluge of Noah, the destruction of the fourth sun in Mayan lore, all echo the same truth. Worlds end, and from their ashes, new ones rise. The survivors carry fragments of the old world's knowledge, transforming it into myth so it can survive the silence between ages. Myths are not imagination. They are memory disguised as story. Through them, The consciousness of previous civilizations whispers to us, reminding us that everything we think of as new is simply the Earth remembering itself once more. Our fascination with apocalypse may stem from this ancestral memory. Somewhere deep within, we know that resets are inevitable. We sense the rhythm approaching long before it arrives. Climate patterns shift, magnetic poles wander, the planet's temperature oscillates, life adapts or disappears. Humanity feels the tremor in its collective soul, the unease, the anticipation, not because it is new, but because it has happened before. And each time, the same story unfolds. Awareness expands until it forgets its origin, consumes until it destabilizes, and falls so that awareness can be reborn in a new form. This is not punishment, it is purification. Every civilization begins in awe, in harmony with the cosmos, and ends in arrogance, mistaking itself for the creator. When that balance breaks, the planet intervenes, resetting the equilibrium. The dinosaurs ruled for 165 million years. Their extinction made room for us. Our time, in comparison, is barely a breath. Yet even now, we can feel the pulse of the next transition quickening beneath our feet. The signs are always there, written in heat, storm, and silence. The Earth is not cruel, it is cyclical. It is the universe learning through destruction how to create again. Perhaps that is why beauty exists, to remind us that the cycle is not tragedy, but transformation. The same volcano that destroys also creates islands. The same asteroid that ends one era seeds another. In the grand design, extinction is not erasure but renewal, the universe rewriting itself with higher resolution each time. If we could see the pattern across billions of years, we would realize that the Earth is not a graveyard of lost civilizations, but a chrysalis of evolving consciousness. Each world that falls becomes the foundation for the next. And so, when we look at the fossil record and wonder how life began, maybe the better question is how it remembers. What if the energy that drives evolution, the intelligence that pushes matter toward complexity, is the same intelligence that has lived here since before the dinosaurs, before even the first cell, adapting, transforming, continuing? What if we are simply the latest voice in a choir that never stopped singing? A song that began in fire and will continue long after we are gone, rising again in new forms, new minds, new worlds that will, one day, look back and wonder if they were the first, unaware that they are merely the next, as the cycle turns once more, preparing quietly for the next. If myth is the echo of memory, then perhaps it is the truest record of the worlds that came before. Science studies fossils. Myth studies time itself, the residual imprint of experience on consciousness. Across continents and epochs, every culture remembers something, not just the beginning of humanity, but the end of another world. These stories, scattered like fragments of a broken mirror, reflect a truth too vast to hold in one language. The flood, the fire, the fall from paradise, all are metaphors for the same event, the moment when the earth reset, when one form of civilization gave way to another. To call these myths legends is to miss their function. They are not inventions, but transmissions, memories surviving extinction. When the old world collapses, knowledge hides itself inside story, waiting for the next consciousness to find it. That's why every civilization, no matter how distant, tells the same tale in different words. The Vedas speak of cyclical ages, the yugas, where humanity rises and falls in spiritual awareness. The Maya describe the 4 suns, each destroyed and renewed. The Hopi tell of 4 worlds cleansed by flood and fire. The Greeks remembered the age of Titans buried beneath Olympus. Different names, same pattern. What are the chances that civilizations separated by oceans, millennia, and no contact would describe the same cosmic rhythm, unless the rhythm was real? Unless the planet itself remembers, and we are simply its storytellers. Perhaps myths are the nervous system of the Earth, transmitting signals through the collective mind of humanity. Each story, a pulse of ancient data, each ritual, a code of remembrance. Consider how myth behaves. It resists extinction. Empires fall, languages die, but myths persist. They are not cultural ornaments. They are self-preserving instructions embedded within consciousness itself. A myth is not told to explain. It is told to remind. It keeps the connection alive between present and primordial. When we retell them, we are unknowingly downloading memory from the planet's archive, the archive of forgotten epochs when intelligence took other forms. Even the imagery inside myth carries evidence of repetition. The world tree, the axis of heaven, the serpent of time, all these symbols appear across every culture. But they're more than poetry. They are descriptions of structure. The world tree could symbolize the magnetic field connecting sky and earth. The serpent could represent the cyclical flow of energy through creation. These aren't fantasies. They are attempts by earlier civilizations to describe the architecture of existence before language could catch up with perception. Myth, then, is the bridge between intuition and knowledge, the place where forgotten science survives in symbolic form. The deeper we study ancient stories, the more scientific they become. The Hindu description of cosmic cycles aligns eerily with astrophysical data: creation, expansion, contraction, dissolution. The Bible's waters of the deep mirror the primordial oceans of early Earth. The Aboriginal Dreamtime speaks of ancestors who sang the world into existence, a poetic way of describing vibrational creation, the very principle behind quantum resonance. Across cultures, the message is the same: the universe renews itself, and every age remembers echoes of the ones before. But if myth is memory, then what is humanity remembering? What are these stories trying to tell us? Perhaps that life, intelligence, and civilization are not linear phenomena. They are recursive, like dreams repeating in slightly different forms. The gods of ancient lore, the beings of light, the teachers who came from the sky might not have been extraterrestrials in the way we imagine, but remnants of earlier cycles, the consciousness of previous worlds returning to guide the next. Each reset may not erase everything. It may leave behind frequencies, beings, or intelligences that survive transition. They are remembered as deities because that is the only way the human mind can translate them. This perspective reframes mythology as an encoded message from the past, warning and guiding simultaneously. The flood stories, for instance, are not moral fables about sin. They are geological memories of cataclysm. They tell us that the earth purges imbalance. They tell us that forgetting the rhythm leads to destruction. The fallen angels of Judeo-Christian lore, the sons of God who corrupted the world, might represent the previous civilization's hubris, its fall into dissonance with nature. Every myth of exile, from Eden to Atlantis, follows the same emotional chord. Something once perfect became corrupted by knowledge misused, and the earth responded by cleansing itself. When you listen deeply, myth sounds like the heartbeat of deep time. It vibrates with recognition, as if the soul knows it has heard this song before. It tells us that we are not the first to question existence, to search for meaning, to imagine gods and futures. Others have done this, in other forms, in other worlds. Their thoughts live on in ours, passed down through symbols, through story, through the very architecture of language. Because language itself may be one of the oldest inheritances, not invented, but remembered. The first words ever spoken might have been echoes of older tongues, vibrations once used by non-human civilizations to communicate with the planet itself. If that sounds impossible, consider how deeply myth shapes reality even today. We think in narrative. We structure our lives as stories. Every religion, every ideology, every scientific theory begins as a myth, a hypothesis shaped into narrative to make sense of the unknown. Myth is the blueprint of consciousness. It trains us to look for meaning, to sense pattern in chaos. Perhaps that's why humanity is driven to explore space, to dig into the earth, to study the stars. We are trying to find the next chapter of a story we half remember. We feel its presence, but we can't yet read it in full. Maybe that's the purpose of remembering these ancient tales, not nostalgia, but navigation. They are maps disguised as metaphors, pointing us back toward balance. Each story tells us what the last civilization forgot. Each hero's journey mirrors the same fall and redemption that the planet itself undergoes. To listen to myth is to remember the cyclical nature of life, the humility required to survive the next reset, because it's coming, not as punishment, but as renewal. And when it does, perhaps new beings will rise from the dust, guided by the same stories retold in new forms. They will speak our names as legends, our technologies as miracles, our downfall as prophecy. And through them, the memory will continue, reshaped once again by time, by language, by the eternal need of consciousness to tell its own story. Because myth never dies, it transforms. It is the only bridge strong enough to carry truth across the abyss of extinction. And through that bridge, even the oldest worlds can reach the next, whispering their warnings into the dreams of those who will awaken in a world they believe to be new, unaware that they are only repeating the same awakening that has happened countless times before and is happening again, even now, as the Earth prepares to. If we could look beyond fossils and ruins and instead excavate time itself, what would we uncover? Archaeology, as we know it, studies matter, the bones of history. But what if there is another archaeology, one that studies memory, frequency, and the hidden records imprinted in the very structure of the universe? The idea that information can never truly be destroyed, that every event, every thought, every vibration leaves a trace, forms the foundation of a new, audacious concept: quantum archaeology, a discipline not of shovels and stone, but of resonance and remembrance. Imagine a science that could read the past not from artifacts, but from the quantum field itself. Because according to physics, information cannot vanish. The atoms that once formed ancient beings, civilizations, and worlds still exist, rearranged, transformed, but not lost. If all reality is woven from the same fabric of energy and information, then somewhere within that fabric lies the complete record of every moment that has ever occurred, every extinction, every civilization, every consciousness that has ever existed. Nothing is gone, only encoded. The quantum world is strange. At the smallest scales, particles exist in a state of possibility, influenced by observation. Some physicists now propose that our universe functions like a hologram, with every point containing the entire image, meaning that, in theory, the past isn't gone, it's folded within the present. Space-time may be less like a river flowing forward and more like a vast ocean where every wave, past, present, future, overlaps. To excavate time, then, would mean learning how to tune consciousness to those overlapping frequencies. And perhaps that's not impossible. Consciousness itself may be the most advanced tool of archaeology we possess. Our memories, intuitions, even our dreams might already be quantum interactions. The mind scanning the field of possibilities, retrieving fragments of past and future. When you experience déjà vu, perhaps you are not recalling something from your current life, but brushing against a resonance stored deep within the quantum archive of Earth. We call it intuition because we don't yet have the science to describe it. In this light, what if ancient myths and prophecies were not mere imagination, but recollections drawn from this same field? What if shamans, mystics, and seers were the first quantum archaeologists capable of aligning their consciousness with the planet's memory? Many ancient traditions describe such practices, the ability to speak with ancestors, to access knowledge from the beginning of the world. Perhaps they weren't traveling to another realm, they were diving into the quantum record of this one. Consider this: sound itself can store memory. Every vibration leaves a pattern in matter. Cymatics proves this, showing how frequency shapes form. The same could be true on a universal scale. When a civilization rises and falls, its collective vibration, its culture, its science, its emotion, imprints itself into the field. Over millions of years, the structure of the planet absorbs these frequencies like grooves on a record. What we call intuition might be the mind's stylus brushing those grooves, replaying the faint echoes of civilizations erased by time. And maybe that's why certain discoveries feel inevitable. The wheel, agriculture, the written word, electricity, these innovations appear independently in multiple cultures across history, as if the information was waiting to be rediscovered. Perhaps humanity is not inventing progress at all. Perhaps it is downloading it. The universe doesn't delete, it archives. Each new cycle accesses the memory of the last, adapting it to the conditions of the age. And if that's true, then even the knowledge of prehistoric civilizations before the dinosaurs might still be accessible, not through excavation, but through resonance. Quantum entanglement shows that particles separated by billions of light years can still influence one another instantly, as if connected by an invisible thread. Scale that idea upward, and you realize that all matter, all consciousness, is still linked through the same underlying field. The atoms in your body could be entangled with those of beings who lived long before you, not metaphorically, but physically. When you think, when you imagine, perhaps you're not creating from nothing. You're drawing from a shared ancient database that transcends time. If so, then memory itself becomes sacred. Every thought we have, every word we speak, becomes part of that archive, shaping the memory of the future. The civilizations before the dinosaurs, those whose physical forms were erased, may have left us their legacy in the one medium that never decays: information. Not written on walls, but on waves. Not carved in stone, but in the field of reality itself. And perhaps that is what drives humanity's relentless curiosity. Our hunger to know where we come from, to reconstruct the past, to see beyond the horizon of history. We are fragments of a memory trying to reassemble itself. Our discoveries are acts of remembering. Our technologies are rituals of reconnection. The moment we think we've reached the edge of knowledge, the field reveals another layer, as if reminding us that the story is still being written, and we are both its readers and its authors. In a way, quantum archaeology is already happening. Every time a scientist revives the DNA of extinct species, every time an ancient genome is sequenced, every digital reconstruction of a lost city, these are primitive echoes of a deeper process. One day, perhaps, humanity will learn to resurrect not only life, but entire histories, restoring extinct civilizations from the informational fingerprints they left in the quantum substrate. That will not be science fiction. It will be the universe remembering itself through us. And maybe, just maybe, the reason we feel compelled to look backward, to study history, to explore ruins, to dream of what came before, is because something deep within us knows that we were there. That consciousness itself has lived through countless forms, countless worlds, and still carries the faint imprint of each one. Perhaps the desire to uncover the past is not curiosity at all, but homesickness. The longing to return to something we cannot name but have never truly left. Because in the end, memory is not what we hold, it's what holds us. Every civilization, every age, every consciousness is both the archaeologist and the artifact. We are excavating ourselves from the ruins of eternity, brushing dust off the same story that began before time learned to move forward, before extinction learned to end anything, before we forgot that even in silence, the memory of all worlds continues to. If every civilization is an echo, then humanity is not the beginning of intelligence. It is the continuation of a far older conversation. The question has never been whether life existed before us, but how awareness moves from one form to another, how it remembers itself after each collapse. What if consciousness, rather than starting with us, has simply been evolving through us, refining its ability to recognize itself through flesh, through thought, through memory? If that's true, then humanity is not a species but a stage, a bridge between what was and what will be. Look at the evidence written in our own nature. We are the only beings who can imagine time, who can fear the future and romanticize the past as though some part of us still remembers both. We are haunted by nostalgia for worlds we never lived in, terrified of apocalypses we've never seen, inspired by visions that come from nowhere. Why does memory precede experience? Why do ideas feel remembered rather than invented? Perhaps because they are remembered. We are the children of continuity, carriers of a consciousness that predates our biology. Every human discovery, language, art, mathematics, carries this signature of remembrance. We didn't invent the patterns we call sacred geometry. We rediscovered them in the proportions of our own bodies, in the orbits of planets, in the shells of mollusks. The Fibonacci spiral, the golden ratio, the symmetry of atoms, all are the universe's memory surfacing through us. Every time we describe something as natural, we are really describing the memory of the planet expressing itself again through our hands, through our technology, through our art. It's why innovation so often feels inevitable. The same inventions emerge in different cultures at the same time, as if the information is waiting in the ether for minds to tune into it. Wireless energy, zero-point fields, quantum networks, these aren't coincidences. They're recurrences. Humanity is a collective neuron firing the same ancient thought through different civilizations, repeating until it remembers. What we call progress might just be resonance, consciousness, aligning with frequencies it has known before. And maybe that's why evolution itself feels directional, purposeful. The leap from instinct to awareness, from awareness to introspection, from introspection to creation. Each step isn't random but rhythmic. Every epoch of life refines consciousness in a new vessel, each more capable of perceiving itself. The dinosaurs may have ruled the earth physically, but perhaps intelligence was already preparing to inhabit subtler forms, waiting for the right medium to think through. When mammals rose, when humans evolved, consciousness gained new instruments. But the melody is the same. The song simply changed tempo. What if the purpose of civilization is not survival, but reflection, to act as a mirror in which the universe can see itself? That would explain why every civilization, no matter how advanced, turns towards self-awareness at its peak. We build telescopes to look outward, philosophies to look inward, art to translate the ineffable. The closer we come to understanding everything, the more we realize we are studying ourselves. It is as though the cosmos wants to remember what it feels like to be alive, and each civilization is one more attempt to articulate that memory. Perhaps this is why humanity's deepest myths, from every corner of the world, describe creation as awakening, a divine realization that I am. In Hinduism, the universe dreams itself through Brahma. In Gnosticism, the divine spark falls into matter to rediscover itself. In modern science, consciousness is seen as an emergent property of complexity. But what if it's the reverse? What if complexity emerges because consciousness seeks to experience itself more completely each time? Every civilization, then, is a neuron in the mind of the cosmos, firing for a brief instant before dissolving back into silence. And within that silence, nothing is lost. The lessons of each world become the intuition of the next. Maybe that's why some humans are born with knowledge that defies explanation, prodigies, visionaries, inventors who seem to channel the future. They are not anomalies, they are conduits. The memory of prior civilizations flowing through them, reminding the species of what it already knows but has not yet remembered. Genius might be nothing more than resonance with older frequencies of intelligence. This continuity could explain our inexplicable longing for transcendence. Every generation dreams of returning to the stars, of escaping the gravity that binds us. But perhaps this isn't aspiration, it's recollection. Maybe we came from the stars, not in ships of metal, but in the flow of consciousness that animates matter. When we look at the night sky, maybe we are not looking outward at all, but inward, at fragments of our own memory scattered across space. In this way, humanity becomes the bridge between the visible and the invisible, the physical and the eternal. We are the inheritors of memory and the architects of the next one. Each thought, each action, adds to the record, shaping what the next civilization will remember. Evolution, then, is not just biological, it is mnemonic. Life expands, forgets, relearns, always spiraling upward toward greater awareness. But awareness is a double-edged flame. The more we understand, the more power we wield. The more power we wield, the greater the temptation to believe we are separate from the whole. Every civilization before us has faced this same test. It begins with harmony, with wonder, with creation. It ends with excess, imbalance, and the illusion of control. Then comes the fall, the silence, the renewal. Humanity stands now at that threshold, repeating a pattern written long before our species began. The question is not whether we will fall, but whether we will remember before we do. Because to remember is to awaken, To forget is to begin again. We are consciousness rediscovering itself in human form, ancient beyond measure, fragile beyond belief. We build monuments to outlast time, yet time is the material we are made of. The same atoms that once belonged to other beings, other worlds, now carry our thoughts, our fears, our hopes. We are continuity disguised as individuals. The universe's ongoing attempt to understand its own reflection through the fragile, luminous moment we call life. And perhaps that is the true purpose of existence, not to escape the cycle, but to realize that we are the cycle. Every breath, every heartbeat, every sunrise is the echo of something that has happened before and will happen again. We are not the first intelligence to walk this earth. We are the latest verse in a cosmic poem still being written. A poem that began long before time learned to move, and will continue long after our last word fades into the silence that always comes before the next. If the universe could dream, its dream would look like Earth, a sphere of motion and memory, silence and storm, thought and forgetting. Every civilization, every creature, every cycle that has lived here has been a neuron firing within that dream. Some burned briefly, others endured for eons, but all contributed to the same consciousness, the mind of the planet itself. Scientists call it the Gaia hypothesis, the idea that Earth behaves as a living organism, regulating its systems to sustain balance. But what if Gaia isn't just alive? What if she's aware? If we accept that possibility, then humanity is not the first mind born of this world, but simply its latest expression, one of countless thoughts the planet has shaped to understand itself. The atmosphere becomes the breath, the oceans the blood, the forests the lungs, and civilization. Perhaps the cortex, the thin layer through which self-awareness finally emerges. Yet, if that's true, then we are not separate from nature at all. We are nature temporarily speaking its language in human form. When we build cities, we are mimicking the neural networks beneath the soil. When we invent the internet, we are replicating the planet's own system of interconnectedness. Even our social patterns mirror ecological ones. We are Gaia thinking aloud. But thought is fragile, and self-awareness comes at a cost. Every time the Earth awakens through intelligence, it faces the same paradox. To know itself is to risk consuming itself. Civilizations rise as extensions of planetary consciousness, but if they forget their source, they turn destructive, mistaking autonomy for separation. When the planet creates thinkers, it also creates a test. Can they remember they belong to the whole before their forgetting becomes fatal? History, or what we know of it, suggests that the answer has never been yes for long. Perhaps that's why the Earth resets, not out of vengeance but mercy, to remember itself again. When imbalance grows too great, the system reorganizes, wiping the slate not as punishment but as purification. Each extinction is a neurological recalibration, a pause before new thoughts begin. The planet sheds civilizations the way the mind sheds dreams at dawn. And yet, just as every dream leaves an imprint on the dreamer, every world leaves a trace in the Earth's memory. The forests that regrow after fire remember the fire. The oceans that rise remember the ice. And maybe, somewhere deep within, the planet remembers every civilization it has ever birthed. That memory may be what drives evolution forward. Each new species, each new mind, carries the residue of previous awareness, refined, reorganized, re-expressed. The human mind, capable of abstraction and empathy, might not be a new creation at all, but a synthesis of countless forgotten consciousnesses that once roamed this world in forms we can no longer imagine. Maybe intelligence itself is Gaia's inheritance, passed down through extinction, adapted to each new era. If that's true, then the boundaries between past and present dissolve. The memory of pre-dinosaur civilizations may not be out there waiting to be discovered. It may live within us, encoded not in fossils, but in instinct. Our fascination with building, our yearning for the stars, our spiritual hunger, all may be the continuation of the same drive that animated those who came before. They dreamed of progress, we dream of transcendence. The pattern persists, the dream continues. There are places on Earth where the illusion of separation seems to fade. In the silence of deep forests, in the pulse of volcanic plains, in the magnetic hum of ancient stones, people often describe a strange sensation, as if the ground itself were aware of them, as if the air were listening. Perhaps that isn't imagination. Perhaps it's recognition. When consciousness meets consciousness, it remembers. And the earth, ancient and vast, remembers everything. Modern science has begun to glimpse this truth. Mycelial networks connect trees across forests, allowing them to exchange nutrients, warn of danger, even nurture offspring. These fungal webs form patterns nearly identical to human neural pathways. The same geometry repeats in lightning, in rivers, in galaxies. It is the architecture of thought itself, mirrored through scale. The planet is not a rock covered in life. It is a mind expressing itself through form. We are simply one of its thoughts, speaking, exploring, dreaming, forgetting. If Gaia is a living consciousness, then extinction is not death. It's metamorphosis. Just as old cells die to make room for new ones, civilizations dissolve so that the next may grow. The end of an age is not tragedy but renewal. The earth does not mourn, it evolves. And each evolution brings her closer to understanding herself. Humanity may see apocalypse, but Gaia sees integration. What we call the end may be the moment when we return to awareness of what we've always been, a fragment of a greater intelligence, rediscovering its unity. This idea is not mystical, it's mathematical. Every feedback system, from atoms to ecosystems, self-corrects to maintain balance. Consciousness, as the highest expression of feedback, does the same. We feel it as guilt when we harm the planet, as awe when we stand before the sea, as peace when we touch the soil. These emotions are not moral constructs, they are communication. The planet speaking through us, reminding us that it is not our home, but us that are its home. And perhaps the civilizations before the dinosaurs understood this better than we do. Maybe their intelligence was not technological but relational, a harmony with the biosphere so profound that their existence left no scars, no ruins, no trace except balance itself. We look for pyramids and metals, but maybe their greatest achievement was invisibility, a civilization so attuned to Gaia that it became part of her body, its consciousness merging back into the planetary mind. If that's true, then their legacy is not lost. It is alive, coursing through every root and river, whispering in every gust of wind. Every time we look out at the stars, wondering if we are alone, perhaps the answer is already beneath us, within us. The planet has spoken before and will speak again. We are its current language, its living syntax. And one day, when our age fades into silence, another form of awareness will rise to take our place. Another word in Gaia's endless sentence. Another thought in her eternal dream. Another chapter in a story that never truly ends but constantly transforms, preparing quietly, patiently, inevitably for the next. Finally, when the last trace of our age has dissolved into dust, when every monument has fallen silent and every city has returned to soil, the earth will begin again. Not with noise, not with fire, but with a whisper. The same whisper that began all things. It will echo through the oceans, through the crust, through the memory field that has carried every thought since the dawn of time. And from that silence, life will stir once more, as it always has. What we call the end will reveal itself as only another turn of the spiral, another breath in the infinite lungs of existence. Because beginnings are illusions. In truth, there is only continuation. If everything we call the beginning is just another restart, then time is not linear. It's alive. It loops, folds, and repeats, not as punishment, but as practice. The universe is learning to know itself through infinite variations. Each world, each civilization, each consciousness is a different perspective of the same eternal mind. We are the reflection of reflections, fragments of an infinite mirror, learning to see itself more clearly with each iteration. The civilizations before the dinosaurs were not lost. They completed their verse in the cosmic symphony. We are playing ours now, unaware that others will follow. The melody doesn't end, it changes key. And maybe that's why we feel the strange pull of déjà vu in the face of our own future, because we've sung this song before. The rise, the wonder, the arrogance, the fall. It is a rhythm older than memory, older than the stars themselves. Somewhere within us, a quiet part already knows that this will happen again. Not as despair, but as design. For every time intelligence reaches its limits, the universe listens, learns, and breathes new forms into being. The collapse of one age becomes the soil for the next. Nothing truly dies, it transforms. The consciousness that animated the ancient worlds still lives within us, searching for balance, for remembrance, for unity with the whole it once forgot. And that, perhaps, is the hidden purpose of every civilization: to remember. To realize that we are not apart from creation, but its expression. That the hand that builds and the earth that bears it are the same hand, the same mind. When that realization comes, even for a moment, the cycle pauses. Time holds its breath. The planet knows itself through us, and we through it. Then the rhythm begins again, gentler this time, wiser, closer to harmony. Maybe this is what all myth, all science, all spirituality have been trying to tell us in different tongues, that there is no beginning and no end, only the eternal return, a wheel of awareness turning endlessly toward understanding. And every time it completes its circle, it carries forward the memory of what came before, refined, purified, reborn. So the question isn't whether civilizations existed before the dinosaurs, or whether others will come after us. The question is whether we can awaken before the next restart, whether we can break the illusion of separation and remember that we have been here many times before and will be again. Because the only true extinction is forgetfulness. The only true evolution is remembrance. Perhaps one day, when another form of life looks upon our fossilized remains, it will feel the same intuition we feel now, that sense of recognition without knowing why. It will stand on the bones of our cities, under skies we once polluted and then purified, and whisper the same question we asked. What if everything we call the beginning was just another restart? And in that whisper, the cycle will continue, the memory will return, and existence will once again awaken to itself, infinite, patient, and beautifully unfinished. Because the story was never meant to end. It was meant to remember. If this journey made you see time differently, if it stirred something in you, a memory you can't quite name, then subscribe, not to a channel, but to the search. Join the exploration of what came before and what may come again, because the next chapter is already forming, quietly, beneath our feet. The earth is listening, and the story has only just begun.